All right, I'm going to show you guys a quick assessment that you can do on your own at home to check both the internal and external rotation of your hips. Now, we are limited in external internal rotation. We tend to get that tight feeling. Things tend to feel very stiff and restricted, and a lot of that is going to lie into these hip flexors as well as your external hip rotators like that glute med in the back. So what we don't want to do when something feels tight, actually what that means it's probably a little bit on the weaker side. We don't want to stretch it because that can instigate the pain a lot more. It can really irritate it, and it's not going to give us any solutions. Stretching is great when used properly. But what we want to do is we want to find where that restriction's lying, and we want to do specific targeted exercises to help gain strength there, because the stronger an area is going to get, the more mobile it's going to get, and the stronger and more mobile an area is, the more stable it is, and it's less painful as we go throughout daily activities, life, or sports. So first thing I'm going to show you what to do is how to test your external rotation. So you're going to lie on your backs, and we're going to have our feet out straight. Then you're going to place like the inside of your heel right outside of your knee like you would in like a tree pose. Then you're going to let that knee fall open. Now ideally, you want to be able to get your fist underneath of there and have your bottom of your fist and the top of your fist be touching your knee. Now what I typically see is something more elevated and higher, where I'd have to like put my thumb and my pinky on the ground. So the more space that you have between the floor and your knee, the more restriction that you've got going on in that external rotation, which lets us know as coaches is that we've got to work on the glutes more, opening the glutes up, creating strength into that glute med so that we can work into that position better. Now, next what I'm going to have you guys do, and you're going to get some real fun angles of your coach here, is you're going to take a yoga block. And we're going to be in a dead bug type position. So I'm going to show you from an angle first. Low back's going to be on the ground, and we're going to get into like this tabletop parallel position. I'm going to place that block in between the knees, and I'm going to squeeze it a little bit. Now, if just squeezing that bothers your hip flexors, you're probably really restricted. And then from here, we want to kick both heels away from us. Here comes your fun angle. So nice parallel. I'm going to kick those heels away from me a little bit. And typically what I see is stuff like this. So you can tell that this side would be more restricted than the other. You can also take one at a time, pause, hold it, do a little mental note, think about a clock, that's about 2 o'clock. If I were to open up this way's a little more restricted for me. I'm at about between a 10 and 11 o'clock. And that's how you can test to see the restriction on your internal rotation. Another way you can go about it, I'm going to have you guys just looking at my hips here. Slightly fix my camera angle. There we go. So if I were to pick up my hip, ideally, or pick up my foot, ideally I want my hip points to be level right here. What I see a lot of is this happening. So you know that you've got some painful movement and probably some restriction and mobility into that if you've got the hip that wants to lift up. Another thing you can do, again, you're just going to see mostly my bottom half. Put a yoga block or two out in front of you and stand close to it. So my right foot is behind this yoga block, and I'm going to pick it up, and I'm going to put my weight onto my heel. You can always hang on to something here. And I'm going to step it back. And ideally, you want your path of your foot to be nice and linear, stepping forward and stepping back. Now, what I see a lot of is this, right? Because bodies are smart. They're going to take the path of least resistance. Or I see a lot of this happening. We've got to open up the hip to get it there, right? So again, do this test. See if you can get that nice linear path. Or if you're going this way, you're probably limited in external rotation. And if you're coming out this way, you're probably limited in internal rotation. So there are 2 tests that you can do to self-assess to see where you might have some restriction and limitation lying in your hips.